Welcome to another episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah.
I'm Heather.
And today we are talking all about building self confidence in your alcohol free journey. And Heather did the research on this one, and I went through the notes really quick before we hopped on, and it is going to be so beneficial. So, whether you're new to your alcohol free journey or farther along, stay tuned because this is information that you need.
Listeners and Sarah, I have a question. Have you ever woken up after a night of drinking and felt that gut wrenching regret?
Oh, yeah. Like where you're thinking, I told myself I wasn't going to drink. I
Mhm.
drank. Now I'm laying here with a hangover again.
Again, we've let ourselves down again.
Yeah.
So, today we're going to learn about trusting ourselves in a way that you never have before.
Yeah.
So, why does alcohol erode our confidence and self worth? Cycle of broken promises. I told myself for years that I wasn't going to drink that day. Got home from work or the itching hour came and I drank.
Yeah.
So, I ended up breaking promises to myself repeatedly, not really knowing that I was doing that. And then I felt super disappointed, diminished, and like self worth was eroding. I didn't realize that then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to know when it's happening that you're stuck in that cycle, right? And that's how I was. And I kind of quickly realized, like, oh, I've been breaking promises to myself. Like when I started my alcohol free journey, I realized, look at me. I'm keeping promises to myself. I'm saying I'm not going to drink this weekend and I'm not. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, I was just feeling confident in other areas. And I think that's where I
Yes.
started to be like, is this the not drinking? And I was like, I think this is the not drinking.
Yeah. The next part, and this is no surprise if you've been listening for a while, but I was a big emotion number, and alcohol's really good at that. And I mean, we escape our feelings, and it prevents us from confronting our own issues and the issues around us. And those are the very things that require growth and healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you can't actually understand your emotions, then you can never even start to heal them.
Right.
And when we're constantly numbing them, there's just no way to
Yeah.
get there. And I
Yeah.
know that you always say, which I think it's so insightful of you that you knew you were numbing your emotions. Because for me, I felt like, no, I drink when I'm happy. I drink to celebrate. I didn't
Hmm.
realize that even if you think that way about yourself, alcohol is still numbing all of your emotions, all of your
Yeah.
parts.
Right. I would use it to enhance happy and
Mm-hmm.
take away sad. You know,
Yeah,
it's a sneaky little thief. So
it is.
with that, like all that to say, like I knew there was a portion of me that knew I was drinking grief away. And my self
Mm,
perception was super impacted because I didn't have a clear self image of
yeah.
inner or outer, really. We all get super anxious, feel like we have imposter syndrome, and then it just chips away at our confidence.
Yeah, that makes sense too, that you just don't have that sense of self-image. I never really thought about that, so I'm really glad you
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah. It's a great one to really look at too, especially in terms of identity.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking about our
Yeah,
confidence, how can you build on something if you can't see it
right? And
in a
the way
way,
you
or
see
feel it or
yourself,
know it?
yeah, and the way you see yourself as a drinker is like so distorted from what it really is, right? Like I thought I was just
Yeah.
the funniest drunk person in the world, and now I think about it and I'm like, "Oh my God, I was probably so annoying." I was
Yeah.
so like, and I would tell people like, "Oh, I'm just keeping my life together. Look at me. It doesn't matter that
Mm.
I drink because I do all of these little things." And I
Yes.
was really doing all of them to prove that I didn't have a drinking problem.
Yeah. I did a lot of
Right.
that. And I have to share, like, I was that person that when I was intoxicated or drunk, I thought I was so smart. And I would get
Oh,
all
yes.
philosophical with
Oh my
people
God.
about anything and everything. If, I knew it all. Like my ego was a hot mess. So that's just a distorted image because now I don't want to know everything. I want to be effective. I don't need to be right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's because I did the work and I looked at myself.
Yeah.
slowly. It wasn't like I got up on day 2 and was like, "Oh, hello."
Day two, you're just like, oh, I understand myself completely. No,
No, day 2, I could barely move.
I
So
was
it's
just
a
thinking,
prep like everything.
yeah,
So the shift, the sobriety shift, if you will. How does quitting alcohol build confidence? Because I think people hear the word confidence and we all want to build it and we all want to improve it. We want it fast.
we
Well,
want it yesterday.
yep. I don't think it works like that. We're going to learn about how we can do it. So, how quitting alcohol helps is we keep the promise to ourselves, that one promise every day. And it reinforces our ability to keep commitment. And that really helps with our self-trust and our confidence.
Oh, yeah. Like when you tell somebody you're going to meet them on Saturday morning and you actually do it for the first
Right.
time and you don't like, I would text people the night before, oh, sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that and like make up a lie. And I knew it was because I was going to be hungover.
Mhm.
And it's so freeing when you don't have to do that.
That's a really good example. And then when we keep our promises, we grow our emotional resilience. And Sarah and I have been talking a lot about emotional resilience lately. But it's really important when we
It is.
confront our emotions, it allows us to develop the coping skills. Then our resilience grows, which boosts confidence.
Yeah. It makes sense that if you're keeping the promises to yourself and then you're feeling better about yourself, then your emotions can start to more clearly come into focus and then
Hmm.
you start to just build that emotional resilience. Like the more you
Yeah.
can and I always feel like people think emotional resilience is like being able to manage stress, which it is, right?
Hmm.
But it's also just being able to recognize, like that's the first baby
Yes.
step.
Yes.
Recognize what this emotion is, and then you can start decoding, like, what does it do physically to you, mentally to you? And then you can start working with it, which is such a cool thing.
Yeah. I think the tools to cope is the key.
Yes. Yeah. And we talk about emotional resilience a lot in the Daymakers community for sure. I
Yeah.
feel like in every call that I have, no matter what it is, I feel like lately that's been in there. Like, oh, and this will help build emotional resilience. What is emotional resilience? Let's
Right.
define it one more time.
It's like me and boundaries.
Yes.
Speaking of, when we were looking at the shift, we have our self in authenticity in terms of presentation. I don't necessarily mean how you look on the outside. I mean how you look on the inside. So without alcohol, we can express our true selves because we're not drunk. We're thinking with our whole brain, as I clinically love to say. It's really me joking, but you are thinking clearly
Yeah.
and you are able to accept who you are and know your worth. And that takes time. And it's one of my favorite gifts of sobriety at this point.
Oh, yeah. The rediscovering who you are.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes. That's one of my most favorite things to work on with people who have just quit drinking because I feel like it took me a little while to understand that that was happening. So when I can
Yes.
help people who are newer on the journey get there just a little bit quicker and let them in on the secret that when you're not drinking, you're not numbing your true self.
Mhm.
And that way you can actually get to know your true self. Like what an amazing gift as an adult.
Yes. And I think when you work on your worth, if y'all been listening for a while, I think I was on a quest for rest at some point. And then, just working on my worth is really important. And that's
Yeah.
what I've been really focusing on. And I create a lot of this because it's what I'm currently working on and or researching. And I work on this a lot with my one-on-one folks because they're like, God, like I can't like this relation, another failed relationship, another night, I drank again. And I think a lot of that is so closely tied to worth.
Yeah, it really is. And just how you see yourself, it's something that like I work on a lot within body image. I have to constantly remind myself that how I see myself in the mirror isn't how other people see me at all. And that it's like my body is worth loving at every stage. And I'm getting so much better at it. But even as a drinker, I often was just beating myself up because I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh God, I drank again. Why can't I get my shit together? Right. And
Hmm.
then you're just in that negative headspace. And when you're in that negative headspace repeatedly, you're just beating yourself up over and over and over. And we all have our little
Yeah.
things, right? We all have our
Mhm.
things that we beat ourselves up over. But when you start realizing it and understanding that it is part of how you value your self-worth, I think you
Mhm.
start to understand the importance of truly working on it at that point.
Absolutely. And you have the clear mind and the increased energy and the ability to the healthier habits to support the growth.
Yeah.
And it's like a snowball effect.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
every sober win builds the momentum, reinforces the capability and the capacity of self-worth.
Yeah. And it is such a huge gift. And it is such a hard thing to explain to people who are still in their drinking mindset because even if you've just quit drinking, but you're still really in that drinking mindset to start understanding like this is going to snowball in so many ways. And
Yes.
like I just saw another sober content creator yesterday. And I only saw it in the caption of her stories, but I knew exactly what she was talking about. She was like, if you quit drinking, you can do anything. You can take on
Oh yeah.
anything after that because it is such a hard and overwhelming thing. I was like, yes, and that's a huge part of the confidence key. Like
Uh-huh.
if you can take on this thing where society is telling you like, oh, it's totally normal to drink. Everybody should do
Hmm.
it. It's super fun and it makes you cool. And you can say, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then you can wake up every single day and make the choice to not do it. And then you can go beyond it and start doing the work and saying, okay, now I'm going to work on my worth and my emotional resilience and keeping my promises to myself. That's where like the true badassery happens.
Absolutely. I love the word badassery.
I stole that one from Jen Sincero.
It's amazing. So, just want to share that I have some spots open if y'all want to work on your confidence and create a life that you love, sans alcohol. Check out the link in the show note to work with me one on one.
Yeah. And if you are feeling like, oh, but I don't even have confidence to hit that link, like go do it. This is
Yeah.
all about self-confidence today. And I know that feeling to be like, oh, I'm just not even going to click the link. I don't even want to find out.
Yeah.
No, go do it.
Or come join us in the Daymakers and see what we're up to there and get in community where folks are wanting to work and better themselves.
Yeah. We would love to have you in the Daymakers community. And I think
Yes.
it's cool too if you are thinking like, one-on-one coaching sounds great, but I just don't know if I'm ready to make that leap. Start in the Daymakers and then you can always shift how you feel like you need to.
Yes, then you get to meet Heather at 8 p.m. on pajama time, sometimes on the Monday calls. And
Mine's pajama time on the Saturday morning call.
yes, it is. See?
I even tell people a lot. I'm like, it's pajama time.
Me too,
No shame.
every time. So I think too, like from just a quick personal share, I think that I know that I look at things like experiments or something to practice. That's how it
Hmm.
works for me. And I remind myself that people are not paying attention. That's just what I say. And they're not. My sweet daddy taught
Yes.
me that. They're just not. Think about your own self and how much you focus on some person at the grocery store or that you see on a podcast. Like, how long does that really last? Flip that back
Right?
to yourself. Think about
Oh,
it. You're not thinking about it. You're like,
I
oh,
know.
or maybe it's simply me, but I doubt I'm alone. You might be like, oh, look at that person. Huh. And then you keep it moving.
Yeah, exactly. It is very rare that you see somebody that you don't know and you continually think about it later. Like, but
Yeah.
we do it to ourselves all the time
Mhm.
where we think, oh my God, I can't believe I said, like, I don't know, the other night I said, have a great night, or I said, you too. And nobody had said anything that required me to say you too at the
Yeah.
checkout stand. And I had a moment where I was like, oh shit, I'm going to obsess about that. And I was like, no, you're not. Those people, they see so many people coming through their checkout stand. They
It's
don't
like
care.
I fell through my daughter's dance performance last summer. I tripped. I didn't fall all the way down, but it's like one of those falls where you fall for like for like 15 minutes, so you
Oh my
feel.
God.
Then I like had yogurt because I have a little one, and then the yogurt smashed, and I wear a lot of black all over my shirt. I just kept it moving and sat down. Nobody sat by me. It was great, and I used it as a teaching moment because I didn't think about it. I was late, and nobody's
Yeah.
surprised that knows me that knows that I was a few minutes late. I was there. I was fine, but I had to learn how to be that way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that's a huge skill.
I was just glad I didn't fall all the way down because it was hardwood floors and that would have hurt, you know? I'm old.
Exactly. And
I'm
no
out
one,
bad. Just kidding. Thinking about last week's
Oh my,
episode, it was a real
oh,
fit of I about died.
that made me laugh so hard when I was editing too.
Yeah,
But oh my
but
gosh,
seriously.
yes, it is just like we do things. And it's so funny that you say it too, because it's like, well, you remember that thing, but nobody at that dance performance
Right. They
remembers
probably
seeing the lady
may
with
have went
yogurt on her
home.
shirt.
It might have been, Lord, this poor mama was coming through and she,
Yeah.
ate it. And it didn't embarrass my daughter. I said, "Did you see me?" She said, "Things happen, mama," or something sweet. And
Yeah.
I literally kept it moving because I didn't hit the floor. So my point is like we feel so small and so like sea leggish and we feel so seen. And we,
Yeah.
we need to be seen by the right people, not the people who don't matter. That's the point.
Yeah. And it truly, like, I love that you bring this up because I think people talk a lot about, like, how do I socialize without alcohol? And I always tell people shift the focus off of you and put the focus onto other people. How
Mhm.
can you make other people in the room feel more comfortable?
Yeah,
And the moment that works for me, because I'm that type of person. So I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can ask people questions. And like, it doesn't work for some people when I share that, they're like, that doesn't work for me. Oh, no.
right.
And if it doesn't work for you, that's totally, totally fine. Then find the thing that does. But for me, that works. And it also works for me because it helps me remember that everyone is uncomfortable and
Yes,
no one is thinking about the fact that I'm not drinking.
nobody.
Nobody, only me.
Maybe, and
Still.
I won't go on a tangent, but the person that might be thinking about you're not drinking might just want to be drinking with you
Yeah.
and bringing
Yes.
you down.
Yep.
So
They're stuck in their own, I it's mean to say, but like the misery loves company.
it's
It
true.
it is when there are the people who are stuck in their own drinking misery. And I say it that way because we all know now if you've quit drinking, you can see that side with some compassion, right? And you can actually go, they are only thinking about it because they're also stuck. So then why don't you be a beacon of amazing sober light?
Right.
And be like, look how great it can be over here. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to stop drinking and come and try this out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get, that's a whole nother way to shift the focus. So if you are having somebody who's pushing back, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, then show them how you can radiate confidence. You can be your true self when you've quit drinking. It's just a really cool thing.
And I think that, just trying to overcome self-doubt, and I could just use myself as an example. I would have never started a podcast back in 2022 as a drinker because I would have
Right?
thought like I always talked about it when I was drinking, but like in the real life days, still drinking, but like in my sober thoughts, I would have been like, well, what if I stutter or what if I mispronounce a word or what if I fail? So there was a lot of like imposter syndrome, anxiety, self-doubt, or like when I let my life coach program for a long time. I just would have never done a lot of things because I would have said, "Well, I can't do that." I played set myself very, very small.
Yeah. Yeah, I did too. I completely understand that because it was like at the time when I was still a drinker, I was running a multi-level marketing company. Like, so it was Beachbody. So if you don't know what it is, it's think Mary Kay or Tupperware. But I felt like I can't leave that model. Like I can't run my own business. I can't do it all. And I think that when I quit drinking, I was like, oh, yeah, I can. And obviously, I built a business all about quitting drinking. So it definitely
So
took
too.
that. But even when I think about it, I'll think, oh, can I talk about quitting drinking forever? I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe. And then I always think, well, don't worry about it too much because you know enough now that you're going to be able to shift and change if you need to. I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to panic. I have no thoughts of changing
Yeah. I was
direction
like,
right
"What you
now.
about to tell me
Yeah,
on the
no.
recording?" I'm just kidding.
But it is like I just didn't have that confidence when I was
Yeah.
a drinker. Like it was easy to, and I'm not knocking multi-level marketing companies at all. That was a great way for me to dip my toe into entrepreneurship. It took me a lot to do that because I was a teacher. So it's like, that slow progression. And if I wouldn't have quit drinking, I don't know if I would have made the change. I might have just kept being like, oh no, I'm making money doing this. This works for me. I can stay on this. I can
Mhm.
stay on this path.
Yeah, and you can act out of a sense of desire
Hmm.
and want versus reaction and disparity, so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, it's the resilience and it's the tool.
Yeah. It really is. Work those tools.
Yeah. And then
And
and some other
oh, go ahead.
And some other ways to build your confidence, they're very simple. Reflect on the small successes. Write down
Every
your
day.
wins. I used to, and am going to start, send another sober sister 3 wins of the day.
Oh, I love that. And you're going to get
Mm.
someone else involved for
Yep.
some accountability.
Yeah.
And it's like, and who wouldn't like to hear that stuff? I think
Yeah.
I might challenge the day makers to do that just for a little
Mm,
while to
that's
just
a good idea.
remember and get back. Because that's one of the things I have people do on the 30-day challenge. Every single day, write down one thing you did because you chose not to
Mhm.
drink.
And affirmations and positive self talk. I
Oh,
cannot
yeah.
stress the importance of this and reframing, changing the channel of how really start with how you speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that will lead to changing how you think. I
Yes.
have done the field research and I'll share a story. When my daughter was born, I made a promise to myself, and I was still a drinker. I made a promise to myself that I would not talk negatively about my appearance in any way, shape, or form because I wanted to break a little generational thing.
Yeah.
I don't want her to, by way of me, grow up with the very thing you were talking about earlier, Sarah.
Yep.
So, and I had to practice, catch myself. And to this day, it is very rare that I do, even when she's not with me. She's almost 5, but it did stick way quicker than I thought. And I had her when I was 40. So that was 40 years of those.
I
I can,
love that you did that because that's something that I've always worked on. Like if
yeah.
I'm looking at myself in the mirror, never try not to say, oh, I'm so old. Oh, I'm so this, I'm so that. It's always just pretty matter of fact when I'm in the mirror, if my daughter is in the room with me, type
Mhm.
thing. And I think that's so, so important.
Yes. And just practice simple affirmations, positive self talk. Practice with your nail person. Practice in the mirror. Practice from your bed. Say it in your head. If you feel weird, write it out. I have
Yeah,
mine right here, taped up right there. Let's
I
see.
love that.
Mine's I
That's,
live in gratitude. That's one of mine. So those are the affirmations, right?
you had a great one when you were going through chemo. Do you remember what it is? Like,
Yes.
share it because it's so good.
Now, mind y'all, if you haven't been listening, I had no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no nose hair, and no fingernails. And I said, I am beautiful, and everybody around me knows it.
I love that. I was like, she needs to share it because I might take it.
Take it. Everybody take it. Did I
I love
believe it?
the everybody knows it.
And everybody knows it. And if y'all can't see me, I just put my hands on my hips because it felt like that kind of vibe. But did I believe it? 100% not.
Hmm.
Did it help when I was putting on my eyebrows, painting them on, with makeup? Yeah, it did. And it
Yeah.
made me giggle, just the
Yeah.
way I emphatically said it.
Yeah. I know. And have affirmations like that. If your affirmations don't make you feel like that, if they don't make you feel a certain goodness, then they're not working. And
Right.
have one like I'm alcohol free and I radiate like sober confidence. Whatever you want it to be, but make it so positive and that way when you're saying it, you're hearing it and it's going to start reflecting out of you too.
Yes. And when we're building the muscle, when we're going out and peopling and we're like re entering the world as a sober person or an alcohol free person, we're really building confidence and self worth and trust in ourselves, but we just don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do those little, like all you really have to do, if you take nothing away from this podcast episode, it really is just all you have to do is every day promise not to drink and
Hmm.
keep that promise. And all of this will start to build. And then you can come back and listen to this podcast episode and, like, after doing this for 1 year and say,
Hmm.
okay, now I'm going to do this next thing they were talking about. Or,
Yes.
and it's like, now I'm going to start working on my emotional resilience or go listen to the emotional sobriety podcast after this one, right? We have so
Right.
many episodes on so many different topics, but it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, like take that one takeaway. If you're like, I can't build this self confidence, yes, you can.
You can.
Just don't drink today.
Just for today, no matter what.
Yep, exactly.
So, thank y'all so much for listening to this episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I want y'all to reflect on a moment when you felt truly proud of yourself, when you were not drinking, and share your story with us on Spotify or YouTube, and follow us on social media, on Instagram at the Heather Lee Collective. And Sarah, can you remind me the handle for No
It's
More
uh,
Wasted Days?
it's at no So no underscore more underscore wasted underscore days.
Yes.
So just an underscore between every word.
Yeah. So tell us about it. And if you're real, I don't even know. I think it's like anonymous on YouTube. Just tell us how you like the episode on Spotify video and YouTube.
Definitely. We would love to hear that. And if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, where you can rate the podcast, hit that rating button because it really does help push the podcast out to more listeners. It tells the podcast algorithm, hey, people like this. So
Yeah.
it's a nice favor to do for us.
Yes. Thank y'all. And we'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.